welcome inside the Parc Fermé Podcast, number 681, Picking F1's Pocket. That's exactly what Paul does. He's a professional pickpocket at Piccadilly Square when he was an impressionable Ute. I know that for a fact. Hello and welcome. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
A.K.A. Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Formula One. We're going to talk about Formula One and more news about Formula One and stuff that was happening in Formula One, because that's kind of what we do. Before doing that, I have to introduce my cohorts in podcast crime. The first one, you know her, you love her. It's the redoubtable
Grace!
Grace, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, Todd. How are you? We're all going to be pointing in different directions.
I know. Sorry. For those listening, we started recording our podcasts on video and Zoom and post them on our YouTube channel. So apologies for the visual references during any of these.
I did bust out some classic Formula One blog gear
that's
for the
old
show.
school.
Nice.
Formula1blog.com. That is old
The
school,
Ars
Grace.
Tucus.
Yeah, I still don't know what that means.
Nobody knows.
Impressive.
Todd knows.
So provocative.
It's the Aristarchus, but you were so close. Grace, that's OG right there, man.
I just feel like for the first year, that's all we explain. People are like, oh, I like the show. Who's that dude?
Yeah, who's Aristarchus? I don't know. What?
Ars Tucus.
So, yes. So, anyway, also, straight out of the wasteland. He's bad. He's beautiful. He's crazy. He's the man with no name. No, it's the International. Come on, Paul. That's a Thunderdome reference, man.
Yes.
How
Two
you
go
doing,
in,
Paul?
one come out.
That's right. That's right.
right.
Paul is
Yeah.
drinking polygamy.
I'm polygamy porter. There you go.
Yep. That's a little hint of where Paul is this evening. Straight from, and if you're watching this podcast, you can see the beautiful surroundings that Paul finds himself in. He's got, it looks like Paul.
There's a lamp.
There's a lamp and a Ligier shirt? Are you kidding me?
Well, I usually want to put my pictures in the back when I'm at home, but I didn't have that. I didn't bring all my, artwork with me, so I decided I'd just put a T-shirt up there, at least to have something in the background other than whatever that is.
That's a good call. I like
Yeah.
that. I do like your dark underwear draped over the back of the couch there. That's a nice touch.
That's my shorts.
Oh, I was so close on underwear. I knew they covered your privates, whatever they are.
They
I
do.
knew that. Yeah,
they do.
okay.
And if I'm not wearing underwear, I guess technically
Well, there
that's
you
all
go.
they do. But
This podcast just went downhill real
It
fast.
sure did.
I went for a run today in 6,000 feet elevation. That was tough,
Ooh,
man.
that is
Very
tough, man. No air up there.
Yeah. But I had to, after the horrifying plane flight, I had to get out in the open somehow. After I scrubbed myself clean,
Yes.
I had to run out into the free world.
You got to the hotel room, sat in the shower, and huddled in the corner. It's just like terrible.
Just throw bleach on me.
So Paul posted pictures of his flight to Salt Lake earlier today. This morning he got up, and everybody's standing in line. I mean, literally
Yes,
back to
on
back,
top of
all the
each
way
other.
through on top of each other.
Yes.
Paul's
Right, it's like-
I guess 6 foot means different things in airports.
And then the funny thing is, as usual on a plane, it ain't taking off till everyone gets on. So I don't know why you think the extra 2 feet's going to get you flying earlier.
Yeah.
But then, as my friend Paul Gerard said, it doesn't really matter because they just stuck you in a tube with a bunch of people about 2 inches from your elbow. So at that point, all bets are off anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Good call.
Luckily, I had that complete plastic sheet over me and a little.
Well, yeah, I mean, you told me you were going to look like John Travolta and the Boy in the Bubble in that
That's
deal, and that's kind of what you looked like.
Yeah, I look
know?
like the people that greet you at Chick-fil-A. I saw a picture of that. Did you see that? They're
No.
walking around basically in air suits or something. I think it was
Oh my
Chick-fil-A
gosh.
anyway.
It doesn't sound like my Chick-fil-A. I just ate there tonight.
Oh, well, maybe one's in New York or whatever, but basically they were walking around in a bubble suit. It's hilarious.
The Chick-fil-A at my house, like, boom, shake, chicken sandwich, dude, my pleasure. Go on, man.
Let
They're
me put my
hustling
hands
through.
on your sandwich.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
how
My
fast
pleasure.
they are. My pleasure.
Hold it. Let me count your change.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Terrible.
That's
No,
terrible.
they lift up the mask to do that, right? Like
Yeah, right.
back of their face. Extra effort.
Spitting in the sandwich. Oh, Paul, that's gross, man.
Yeah, I was surprised how busy the airport was, quite honestly. I expected it to be kind of post 9/11-ish, and it wasn't anything like that, and people were just as rude as they are at the airport as they are at Walmart, so there you go.
So you walk into the Dallas-Fort Worth airport and go, what the hell?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Well, I'm just glad you made it safely.
Yeah, well, we'll see in 14 days.
As he drinks.
Chortle.
I
heard alcohol kills everything. So.
And bleach and sunlight.
No, it's Clorox and sunlight. Yeah.
Yep.
No,
right.
you should buy a hula hoop.
Okay.
And like claim that you're 6 feet, right?
Oh,
Like,
nice. Okay.
you know, like make a clown, you know, like suspenders so that it like kind of sticks out, so that you
right.
like.
Because I couldn't hula hoop forever.
No,
I mean, I can do it
you
for
need
maybe an hour or so, but forever.
You know, Paul, for you, I'm thinking the Daniel LaRusso high school dance outfit with the shower curtain and the, you know, and Karate Kid, remember? And he went around so they wouldn't recognize him. He had the curtains and no.
Is that Karate Kid 1?
Yeah.
Really? No, I don't remember that.
Yeah. That's okay, Paul. It was just a large part of your 80s life, but that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Well, I don't think Karate Kid was. Maybe Gremlins, perhaps, but not Karate Kid.
Gremlins. You weren't afraid to admit to me that you're a big James Spader fan, and that's okay, Paul.
Ooh, he's evil, man. He's
always the bad guy.
Bad dude, yeah.
Exactly. Hey, should we talk about some Formula One? You want to do that? Or let's talk about 80s movies. The Goonies was never that big. Just for you younger kids out there, every time someone talks about, the Goonies, 80s, never that big. In the 80s, wasn't that big. So, Breakfast Club, yes, that was huge.
Yes, very big.
Boy. Yeah, there was some Formula One news. I'm glad you asked, Paul. Thanks for doing that. Get us back on track.
I was trying to think of, like, you know, do we start talking about 16 Candles? I mean, we can go through all the,
yeah.
Every John Hughes movie, yeah.
I'm just going to say one of my all-time favorite 80s movies is Better Off Dead with John Cusack.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, I love that.
Why'd you throw away a perfectly good white kid like that?
Right. He's like, buck off, little camper. It's so good. Lane Meyer, a spectacle to behold. It's good stuff. All right. Yes, there is some news, Formula One news, Grace, but before you and I get into that, we're going to hit Paul with this first question. Paul, some words, some rumblings, some rumors, and some press coming out of the WEC IMSA camp this week already. Something about Porsche and Corvette either pulling back or pulling out of IMSA or Le Mans to WEC.
Right.
What exactly is going on? Get us up to speed on that.
Well, basically, Corvette have pulled out of going to Le Mans at all.
Did they give a reason for that, Paul?
They said it was to do with the close proximity of the IMSA races to the Le Mans date. But there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and there's a massive budget needed to go to Le Mans testing.
Yep.
I mean, just it's a full-time job just to race at Le Mans, and to put all that effort in and not actually go racing. I think a lot of these car companies are feeling a bit, you know, like maybe we don't want to hedge our bets or roll our dice on that and then waste bunch of money and not actually go racing in the end anyway.
But they are going to continue to race in the States. In
the States, right.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a lot, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in crossing borders, right? There, as I think I mentioned before, just even going to Canada is going to be extremely problematic for IMSA teams. So let alone going across the water, and then they're talking about 14-day quarantines. And a lot of the teams from here are the same teams that race in IMSA. So you can't afford to send your team out there 2 weeks ahead, which is, you know, they're going to be out there way ahead of that. And they'll be in quarantine, so they can't actually do anything for that amount of time. It's a big commitment on personnel for perhaps nothing. So
right.
I think they just decided they'll just skip this year and concentrate and focus on the IMSA schedule. And that's kind of the same thing with Porsche, except they do have two separate teams totaling 4 cars. So two of the cars are run by the Core Motorsport team, which is based in the US, who also run those cars in the IMSA Championship, and the other is the European version of that. So the European guys, they're okay. They don't have to go across the water, etc. But for the core team to then pick up their crew once again, just like the Corvette team, try to get to Le Mans in plenty of time with quarantines or potential quarantines, etc. It just didn't make financial or logistical sense, and it would compromise extremely what they're trying to do on the IMSA side of things.
Right. So, and what's Porsche's deal?
That is Porsche's deal. Is that
that's their whole thing?
That's their deal. Corvette aren't going at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But Porsche are still going there with 2 cars rather than 4.
Got it. Okay.
Because the other 2 came from the US. Yeah.
Got it. All right.
And I think there's going to be a lot more of this as well. I mean, just the stuff I've been involved in with IMSA, asking questions on how to run at the IMSA events without having European influence, because it's a worldwide sport, right? And a lot of the manufacturers come from Europe, and a lot of their technical expertise comes over for the IMSA races, and they globetrot. That's probably not going to be possible, certainly not in the near future. So I see some more of these decisions coming down the road.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That's an interesting thing. I haven't really thought about. I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that in those terms, Paul. If it's just the entire logistics of getting those teams, certainly Formula One, I've thought about it, but from sports car, where are they talking now between? I seems like I was reading something on WC where they were, trying to figure out. I think there was actually a call for fewer races.
Right.
That WC was making, weren't they?
Yeah, and pure for budget. Like, as we know, basically around the world, car production has stopped. So, and car sales have kind of stopped. So that's where all those budgets come from. So,
right.
Anything they can do to make a legitimate championship, but make it a little bit more cost effective, at least for the next year. That's why they'd ask for a reduction in races, not because they don't want to go racing more often.
Yeah.
But they've got to think of how much actual budget they're going to have to use next year.
It makes sense, and it's just different than what we hear Formula One trying to do, and saying we're still trying to get as maximum number of races we can in.
Right, and that's because the financials are kind of the reverse, right?
Yeah.
The teams, the manufacturers, just spend the money. They don't get money from the championship,
right?
Or if they do, it's a minimal. But F1 just generates more money by going racing, and so
right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's jump into some Formula One news. The first big news that started this week is that the UK is set to resume its live sporting events. The Prime Minister released a 50-page sort of document on the easing of the lockdown, and phase 2 of that portion included what they called, quote, permitting cultural and sporting events to take place behind closed doors for broadcast while avoiding the risk of large-scale social contact, end quote. Very, very unlike what you experienced at the airport this morning, Paul.
Yes.
So this is what the UK are going to do. Now, this does raise the hope, in some sense, of staging a British Grand Prix in July, should F1 and the promoters reach an agreement. And Silverstone boss Stuart Pringle. Grace, how do you love that name?
It's great.
Isn't it a great name?
Stuart Pringle.
Stuart Pringle. Just think of the doors that.
Do you want me to leave you guys alone for a while?
That's amazing.
I feel like you should have a monocle and
yeah, and a top hat or a bowler
like Mr.
or something.
Peanut, right?
Yeah. Stuart Pringle. He said that he's encouraged by the government's move to resume live sport, and last month he said that Silverstone would be willing to host a closed-door race. Since we're talking about Paul's native ground, Grace, maybe we should let him give his thoughts first, since he was born from the soil of the United Kingdom. Paul,
I see how it is.
Like an earth elemental, you rose to fame in the British Essex area.
Yes, I rose out of the lake, actually.
Out of the lake, like like the Lady of the Lake. You rose out like Excalibur.
Exactly. That's how we're all born over there, really.
You're all born.
We just don't like to show off.
And you guys all walk around pulling swords from stones. I don't know what the hell it is. What's going on over there?
That explains like Loch Ness Monster, right? It's not just. It's
Sing,
not storks like the rest of us.
I'm a king. No, I'm a king. It's crazy.
It's Nessie dropping you off.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So there you go, Paul. Interesting thing. Talk us through it.
Talk you through it. Well, I mean, obviously the main thrust of England was trying to get the Premiership up and going, right? So this.
I'm glad you said this because it really doesn't have much to do with the Formula One. It's all about football.
It's that 95% football, and everyone else can just kind of toddle along behind that. But yeah, main thing was to get the football going. It's I don't know what to say about it really, because actually I've run out of things to say about it. I mean, what do you say about it? I mean, it's we're still speculating, right? And it's still I just don't know. That the tough thing for me is that they're going to be in Austria first. I think that's the biggest sticking point to the race going off in England.
Well, I'm getting there, Paul.
Okay.
I'm going to bring that up next, but I just wanted to get... Go ahead, Grace. Share.
I think that last...
Here is Paul, you just represented why our podcast has been called Occasionally Insightful.
No, that's
I had no insight at all. I don't know.
There was no insight. Now, Grace is coming up.
That?
Grace is going to actually offer the insightful portion.
With a lot of humor, I'm hoping.
Yes. Go, Grace.
Humor. We're talking about a pandemic. What kind of humor am I supposed to draw from this? I mean,
well, thanks for putting a Paul on the thing.
I don't know. I'm just saying. But
hey, easy.
I think the last. I've been trying to make this comment for 10 minutes now. The last clause is what really needs defined, in my opinion. What is avoiding the risk of large-scale social contact? Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you have any. Like you said, right? This is about soccer. It's not really about Formula One. But I don't even know in soccer or baseball or basketball how you go without large-scale social contact. What is that?
They're doing this by doing closed doors. They're saying these events being closed door for broadcast only, they are thus avoiding.
But let's say the three of us are a basketball team.
Right.
And Paul's asymptomatic, and we play basketball together. Guess what? We're infected now. And
I got to tell you, of that scenario, that's exactly how that would go down, because it would be Paul who is infected.
I just think, it's not even like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, so we all work in environments where you have that coworker that you're like, dude, go the hell home.
Right.
Right.
You're sick, go home. I don't want your sickness. You're going to kill us all. Go.
And they're like, oh, no, we're fine.
I'm good. It's just a little cough. No, it's not. Go home.
Yeah.
Right? So now you have people who don't have any symptoms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who then can carry it. And we don't have a test really that is rapid enough to do something like that. So
it's interesting because I'm going to talk about that in a little bit too.
But technically behind closed doors, they're just like individual businesses running. We're opening individual businesses and we're letting them do it.
But what Grace is saying, so let's say in the case of Formula One, just to do a Formula One race, let's say I think I have heard on a normal Formula One race, there's 1,500, 2,000 people all involved with that program and that show, from marshals to everything. Now, let's just say they scaled that way back and they said, okay, well, we're just going to do it with 800 people or 500 people or whatever. And that's Grace's point. Yes, it's closed door and we aren't having 20,000 or 60,000 spectators, but we still got 800 people in the paddock.
Yeah, but they don't all run around like a 5-year-old chasing a football over the pitch where everyone's just on the same piece of ground. I mean, it's a big track. They spread out. For the most part, people aren't shoulder to shoulder.
Lance Stroll does, actually.
Race anyway. Yeah, he does.
I'm just saying, all it takes is one asymptomatic person, and your chance of infection is pretty high, and that person didn't even know. They weren't even your coworker with the cough that you think should go home. They thought they were fine. They didn't have a fever. They didn't have a cough.
Yeah, that's right. And then you've got the whole, at-risk age groups. These are much younger people. It's all hard to know.
And I think any sport at this point, even closed door, even with the 28 NBA, I don't know how many people are on an NBA team, but anyway, the 24 guys. How do you? Plus the coaches and the
24 people in an NBA team?
Well, there's more than that.
I only ever see 5. That's weird.
Well, they have multiple teams. They usually have.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there's 2 teams, and then you have some extra people, and then you always have some injured people in the nice suits.
Okay, well, they probably won't get going.
Yeah, right. So I just think that at this point, large scale is what, like more than 5, right? 25 is large scale at this point. So I just think it's still, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, this is a lot of wishful thinking still. I get it.
Maybe.
I mean, think that,
wasn't there some way of testing, and as long as, and there's like a 3 or 4 day incubation that you can still know that you're not even.
Oh, I'll get into that, Paul.
Okay.
You've read my notes, I see.
Well, I did. Oh, I can't see your notes because I'm looking at you guys, but I can't even remember what I read now. But yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Let's jump to the next category, shall we? Because it talks to this, Grace.
Okay.
One of the keys, or the real keys, to all of this lockdown easing, phasing sort of program is really the travel isolation periods mandated by local and national governments. Now, currently, many countries are mandating a 14-day isolation period after traveling to other locations, and this would make it very difficult to squeeze in the British Grand Prix after the Austrian Grand Prix on July 5th, which is, Paul, what you were speaking to. Now, having said that, and you know, we've talked about this 14-day, so let's say you're going to have the British Grand Prix, and they all immediately come over from the Austrian Grand Prix. Now, technically, you're supposed to have like this 14-day isolation, and that makes that impossible. However, upon further reading, there is an exemption list, Paul, for this mandate, and it's understood that Formula One is currently trying to get on that exemption list to enable them to remove the paddock and players around more freely from location to location. And I'm sure they're going to be touting Ross Brawn's, remember we talked about it last week, Ross Brawn's biosphere concept that we mentioned last week as a reason to exempt them. But if they could get them into Austria, keep them fenced in this biosphere, and then move that biosphere to Silverstone, I'm sure Formula One saying, hey, we checked them, they haven't gone anywhere, and they're still in our biosphere and under our protection.
You kind of like, we're in customs, right? Where things move around the world, but they don't actually go. They may as well have not actually entered that country because they're sealed and custom clearance, and they're just kind of a thoroughfare.
Right.
But this is exactly why I thought having 2 races on the same weekend was a benefit, right? If you have a spread, you can have a bit more spread between races if you knock 2 races out. But now they're going to have 2 weekends, and so basically these people are going to never be home, right? And never see their family ever, because they got to be in this biosphere lockdown. So that's why I still think they should do 2 races on one weekend, then have a bit more separation between the races.
Right.
But you can't. I just think as an individual, so this is one of the discussion points too. Like, you can open everything. You can say, we're going to open the gyms, we're going to open hair salons, let's have Formula One racing. Who's going to go, right? Like, people may be like, no, I'm okay. You know what? My hair's growing in. I'm okay. I'm not taking that risk, right? So you start to think the individuals may not find this as an acceptable level of risk at any level. And I'm just saying, this biosphere concept relies on every single one of those 900 people to not cheat. Do I believe that all those people are not going to try to cheat? I don't. Somebody's going to try to sneak out. Somebody's going to go to some nightclub. And now we have 500 people that are infected because
which nightclub is that? What nightclub is open right now?
It's the COVID bar.
I'm just saying, like,
where's everybody
with their little crowns? I just think
it's a trance club, Paul.
I don't know. Do I trust other human beings is ultimately what you're asking all these people who are in the biosphere to do as well. Do you trust all these people? I don't know. Do you?
I don't trust anyone after what I saw today.
See? That's what I'm saying. Like, people are left to their own devices. They're not going to follow these rules. It's just not human nature. So
right.
That's where I think the failure. I always say it's just like how in dorms, when we were all in college, right? The dorms are locked, but you know how people get in? People hold the door for them, right? Because we're polite. Like, oh, you're coming in behind me. Let me hold the door for you. No, you should pull that door shut and make them use their key card to get in. That's not what people do, right? It's the same thing that's going to happen. Our own,
and that's how people get murdered.
That's right. Well, I'm just saying that it's our own human nature that's going to lead to the downfall of Ross Brawn's biosphere. Because all it takes is one person, maliciously or not maliciously, and then you've broken quarantine.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's ways of making it work, and I think they can reduce the amount of people. That brings it down to how many people are in a regular business, a small manufacturing plant where they spread themselves out. I think there's ways of doing it. Maybe they haven't thought of every way and they haven't perfected it yet, or maybe it's just like I'm so bloody desperate to go racing myself. I'm just looking for excuses. You're wrong, Grace. You're wrong. Racing's fine, I tell you.
You'd have to really police it too, I guess is my other point. Like you're saying at the airport, right? Was there somebody going, you over there, you over there, you over there? No, there's nobody doing that. So then people all congregate because that's what people do when they're trying to get on the phone.
There's just the one guy on the microphone. Can we have a little social distancing?
Right.
Yeah. Everyone's let me on a plane.
Right. So is it just going to be Ross Braun at the entranceway going, excuse me, I don't think you can go out right now, right? I don't,
He's going to be there with a thermometer.
No,
I'm sorry, Chase. Chase, you've got a 99.1. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go home. Take that crap home, man. You're symptomatic. No, and taking less people. Can you imagine the shock down at Williams when they don't take their caterers and Sir Frank comes in and doesn't see caviar and comes in and sees Hot Pockets? Right?
I think Williams is the same number of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
25.
Yeah, the series could say we're going to drop each team to very few. We're going to drop it down to 60 people, and Williams is going to go. We're going to have to hire people.
We have 60 people. Great.
This is awesome. Oh boy. Also, there was another dynamic about this. I think this whole 14-day isolation. I'm with Paul, Grace. Mm-hmm. Totally understand what you're saying. I'm not discounting it at all. I'm just saying that. With these sports and Premier and Formula One, and I just think that F1 getting on an exemption list or something, I could see that happening.
I could see it happening. I don't know if it should happen.
Yeah, who knows?
Who should it happen to? I mean, the thing with football is it's regional, right? It's national. And I don't think there's going to be any international games happening, so everyone's going to stay in the country they're in.
Yeah, but Formula One is an international sport, to your point, Paul.
As far as I know, it's the second biggest sport in the world, motor racing, is it?
Yeah.
I think, and Formula One is obviously a big part of that. And it's certainly the most international sport in the world.
Yes.
So if anyone was going to be on there, it should be Formula One.
Yeah, you would think. And the interesting thing is I was reading this kind of just adds to the story and the complications, if you will. I was reading an interesting piece. Chris wrote a piece over at The Independent that I was reading about insurance and the isolation requirements around that insurance and travel, right? And very much what we're talking about, this 14-day deal. There's no doubt that each driver, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not going to read you Chris's piece. Go check it out. It's independent. It's worth reading. It just makes you think. But there's no doubt that each driver has serious high insurance premiums due to their high-risk behavior, right? Namely, racing cars.
Playing tennis.
Yeah, right. And I hurt my elbow. Okay, Juan. I wouldn't want to pay Charsley's insurance premium,
No.
But as Chris points out, there could be serious concern or premium increases, or maybe even potentially a lack of coverage. This is my words, not Chris's. A lack of coverage if drivers forgot the local or federal, mandate of the 14-day isolation. My point on this is if they were to forego that, would insurance? So Paul's a Formula One driver. I've got an insurance policy on him. I pay umpteen bajillion dollars a month or whatever a year for that insurance policy. There are very strict things in that insurance policy because he's a race car driver, etc. I'm sure there would be some concern on whether he's, driving or traveling around the world and not doing the 14-day isolation and putting himself at extra risk. Therefore, he wouldn't be able to drive, and then his livelihood. There's all kinds of knock-on effect, right, that goes along with this. Interesting article, though, that I was reading. That's what the experts were telling Chris, and this is from his point, and this is to your point earlier, Paul. Chris pointed out in the article that it's not just the post-travel 14-day isolation, But the medical experts that he talked to said this. They said all F1 personnel will need to be held in isolation for as much as 5 days and tested 3 times during that period in order to get all clear, end quote. Point being here, that's what the experts told him, but it isn't anything that F1 has claimed so far as being part of their biosphere program.
Right.
So you have the pre-race and the post-race program. If you leave Austria and then fly back to the UK, you're supposed to have a 14-day isolation, right? But going to the Austrian Grand Prix, what they're suggesting is it really should be a 5-day isolation when you show up at least.
Yeah.
And during that 5-day, once they get into the paddock, they should isolate for 5 days and be tested 3 of those 5 days.
So what does isolation mean? Just the single person, or they could all be in an area where no one can let them out? Is it literally single isolation?
Should be single person isolation.
That would be tough.
That would be very tough.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton wouldn't do that.
I mean, it's the same thing, right? You should do, like, if somebody in your household got the flu, right? You should put them in a bedroom. They should use a bathroom. You shouldn't share towels. You should wipe everything down, right? Like, they should be in one place. Otherwise, your isolation isn't isolating.
Right. Paul just goes and buys that sort of like, the cockroach bomb that you set off in a room. He just,
what?
Sorry, honey.
There's a problem with that? Yeah.
Sets that in there. So I'm sure that'll kill whatever you got.
We're good.
We'll be back tomorrow. Good luck.
You get some sunshine. You're
Why
good.
rolling on the carpet?
Right. Why not?
Yeah.
So anyway, all of that adds to it. There's this whole pre-race isolation. That's based on the metrics that the medical experts he interviewed were seeing. They said, quote, current tests are not sensitive enough to detect infections within the first couple of days after the infection. That was according to Dr. Jeremy Rossman, a virologist at the University of Kent. You've been there, Paul.
I have. My whole
he
family's
said,
from Kent, actually.
Well, there you go. That's a toddling little town.
Well, it's a county, but go ahead.
Yeah, whatever.
What a cute little town.
What a cute. I'm sorry, is that a hamlet? A village?
So, yeah.
It's a nice little
Whatever.
hamlet. Yeah, Kent. He said most people will have a detectable virus in 3 to 5 days, so testing everyone 3 times over the span of 5 days would give good confidence that most of the people are not infected. Crucially, he added this. He said all staff would have to be isolated during the testing and during the whole event. Mm-hmm. Now, that's from one virologist's point of view.
There's a lot of bloody experts. I know that.
Yeah. I mean, hell, give me another week. I'll be an expert at this point.
Honestly, I feel like the rules are going to change like 3 times before we even get there.
Yeah. I agree.
But
there's a lot of time between now and then.
Yeah. Maybe for the worse. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Who knows? Could be.
I think also, I guess maybe I'm just remaking my own point, right? Like that you would have to have somebody also that makes you stick to it. Like in countries that have had some success, they have a minder, right? Like a person that follows you around, tracks what you're doing. Once you're where you're isolated, they bring you food. They make sure you stay isolated. Like who's making sure, even if you're not maliciously not trying to follow the rules, but that you're singing your happy birthday twice when you go to the bathroom and you wash your hands? Who's making sure you're doing all these things?
Well, Lewis has the gal that follows him around.
He sure does.
Imagine if he gets a 99, she'd have him on the ground with cool wet towels all over him, throwing him into an ice cube filled bathtub.
That's right.
She'd have him
still
totally
washing your hands in there, right, Lewis? Yes, I am.
Yes. Paul points out it is a month and a half away, though. As Chris points out, though, it could play a role in the plans to try to compress the schedule, right? So we have a compressed amount of time. We're still trying to get in 15 to 18 races, let's say 15, and the first one's July 5th. If they stick and hold them to the 5-day or 14-day or whatever it might be, that adds a whole different dynamic to even getting close to 15 races. So I think that's going to be tough. But in fairness to F1, it's more than a month away, and a lot of things can change in the interim.
I think I'd want to see soccer or baseball or basketball pull it off first.
Really? See, my issue with those is they're contact sports, and in racing, it's not a contact sport. At least within the sport, right? I mean, we can keep our distancing if we're just working, but when you're in a sport, part of the sport is physical.
Distance.
Right?
That's right.
You can't do that with football. You can't do it with even baseball, really.
Tennis. Well, let's bring tennis
you can
back.
do it. Yep,
That's
tennis can
true.
do it. You just have to
'Cause if you
sanitize
were-
the ball as it goes over the net. But, you
That's
know,
right, Paul.
that's why I
if
feel
you
like
were a player for Tottenham, for the Spurs, Ozil could get
never
spittle
would've.
on you.
that's right. Now I'm big time.
Yeah.
That's why I felt racing was going to be the first sport out of the bag, because it lends itself to that, because the drivers are isolated when they're in competition, and it's easier to keep the support people in where they need to be when the competition isn't actually going on, because once competition starts, all bets are off.
Right.
So I find basketball really unlikely, and football a little less so. And maybe if they change the hockey outfits, maybe that'll be okay. But
wrestling
a lot
is
of
right
fluid.
out.
But basketball is so physical, and they're sweating on each other, and they're jumping, and they're chopping at each other. I feel like basketball will be one of the last ones.
A lot of urine involved there.
Oh, we're back to talking about hockey. No, I thought. Well, then
What
maybe.
does Scott Speed have to do with anything?
Gosh, Scoot. I think that maybe baseball's the way to go, and no more spitting.
Perfect.
Because
No,
spitting's
well,
gross
that's
anyway.
a
Definitely no
problem.
more spitting.
Yeah.
And
That's
the
disgusting
catcher has
anyway.
to be, I don't know how far back he is from the batter, really. But yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I
But
don't
you
know.
can't tag. No tagging. No tagging. No.
No bases.
Virtual bases, virtual tagging.
Right. That would have been a single. That would have been,
Yeah.
I'm on first. All right.
Over
Ghost
there.
runner on first. Ghost runner on first. Ghost runners on first and third. Yes. I know how that's
Good,
played.
good. Way to take it the way back machine. That was pretty
Yes,
good.
that was good.
All right.
All right. So big
Sandbox,
news.
another 80s movie.
Yes.
That's right.
Don't lose the ball in the neighbor's yard, though.
You're killing me, Smalls. All right. So let's see. Hey, big news over at Williams. Paul, they signed your boy from McLaren, from Grace's team, Mr. Simon Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
They signed up. They announced they were hiring him as the new managing director, F1. Simon's going to be responsible for, get this, all technical operations and planning functions, as well as racing and factory operations. He will also take the responsibility for the car design and development. No offense intended here.
But not the uniforms.
No.
Claire is still in charge of the uniforms.
Yes, there will be no
damn
more
shorts.
wire hangers. And no shorts.
No shorts.
Yeah. So, no offense to anyone, but this seems like a pretty big move. Now, there was a big gap there with the wilting wallflower that was Paddy Lowe after he unceremoniously left with his tail tucked between his legs.
That scene.
Oh, that scene from Drive to Survive.
This is one of the funniest
Hi,
things I've ever
Claire.
seen in my life.
Hi, Paddy.
Here's
Go
some
die!
choc-
Go
here's-
die!
Here's some chocolates.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Of course, far be it from me to kick a guy when he's down, but I was never really that convinced. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, look what Paddy Lowe did with the Mercedes team. That was all done by Ross Braun before Paddy got there. Sorry. I'm not marginalizing. I'm sure he's a brilliant guy. But anyway, there was this gap there. And Paddy Lowe, so he dips on him, right? He leaves. And then, I got to be honest with you, I've been saying this for some time now. This is, in my mind, this is kind of Claire saying, yeah, I need to get a real pro in here to manage the whole damn thing. Because at this point, I'm taking a beating in the press. The team is just sucking air. I've taken out big-ass loans for Latifi and company, and I've leveraged and used everything we own as collateral, including my dad's wheelchair. At this point, I got to do something to get this thing turned back up. And why not go out and your Hail Mary is to poach Simon Roberts from McLaren to come in and run it? How do you guys see this?
Yeah, I honestly thought there was going to be another sentence of the year, and that Claire was stepping back from her
Right.
role. I thought
It
that
wouldn't have
was
surprised
coming,
me.
and it didn't come.
Yeah.
They're still giving her that title, which is nice, but it literally seems like he's taking everything that's
Right.
basically under her guise, and she's just going to go, look good.
That No shorts, Simon. Yeah, it looks good though. Everything's good.
That's good. Do you want me to get some parts from England and bring them with me?
Yeah. I'll get come in on the plane. Yeah. Hi, Claire. Hi. I need to get an audio clip of him saying hi, Claire. This is too good, man.
It is.
That'd be a really jerk move me to do, but
I'm going to go watch that scene right after we hang out.
I think it's going to be okay. I'm pretty sure Patty Lowe does not listen to our podcast.
I don't know. I don't think anyone listens to our podcast.
Well, he did send Todd a couple of emails asking if he could be on, and Todd was like,
I don't know, man.
Ooh, well, we feel we're kind of booked up for the next. I don't know.
We got a lot of news to cover.
And then he called me. He kept calling. Finally, I was like, Patty, we only interview successful Formula One people. All right, we don't. We don't interview people that Claire Williams fires, all right? That's just not how we
came
roll.
outside, he's washing your car.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Todd.
I know. Today I got a Harry and David fruit basket from him.
Wait, man, we got to cover Vroom. We don't have time for you in our schedule right now.
Sorry, Patty.
Things to do.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Man.
Time to move on.
He's like, come on, could you call, Zach? I was like, no, I wouldn't do this to Zach. Zach and I are like this,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't do that to Zach. No, so who knows? So all jesting aside, I think it's a great move. I think it's a great move. This team desperately needs it. And I think it's a great move. And by all measure, I think Simon Roberts is a good chap to have in there. He was also at Racing Point or Force India for a while, then went back to McLaren. But good guy to do that. And
they're going to have a new name for that team by the time we actually race again. Like as soon as I start calling
it'll be
Racing Point,
it'll be Latifi F1.
Oh, I meant Force India, right? Like because I still call them Force India. I'm finally going to start calling them Racing Point.
Oh, it'll be Aston Martin.
Else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be Aston Martin.
Yeah. I think we all have that friend that you're like, oh, this is a significant other. You'll be replaced next week. I'm not going to really bother to learn much about you, but I'm glad you're here for dinner. This sounds nice. That's how I feel
that sounds like a Seinfeld episode.
Oh, wow. I think.
What kind of friends do you have, Grace?
You never had a friend that just, was always with some like this is my significant other this week, or had some other thing. Okay, we'll see how this goes in a month.
Paul, that's how they do things, the elite in DC. That's how they do things.
I guess.
Yeah, I'm super elite. I'm here in a t-shirt and a sweatshirt, right? Like, yeah,
and
super
she's nearly
elite.
hung her picture up.
Nearly. It's still in my IKEA furniture.
It's a little cockeyed. Yeah.
Yes.
It's
nice. I'm super elite here. I don't think so.
Part of the elite, the expert class you are, Grace.
We're in trouble. If you made it this far and you still think I'm the expert class, we're in trouble. What did you say? Podcast 684? Yeah, right. I think we're in trouble.
Well, that's why we're only occasionally insightful.
All right. That's all.
Let's go on. Okay, so this is just chalk this up as the fun and frivolity portion of the podcast. It's what I've titled Remaining Relevant. So Lewis Hamilton, I find in the last week or so, has been really working hard and spinning tales to remain what I would consider newsworthy in light of all of the attention and press and social media. 100% of it is going to the younger drivers right now, and it's happening on a daily, hourly basis.
Yes.
They're constantly in the news. That's all anyone's talking about is Lando Norris and his whole cadre of young drivers.
An album,
an album.
And George,
everybody.
don't forget George.
Yeah, and George, right, and George Russell. That's all everyone's talking about. Yes. And I think Lewis is kind of like, well, wait a minute, I need to get into the press.
I can play Rocket League. I can do this.
Yeah. I'm just not doing the sim thing because it'll damage my brand equity. My brand manager said I couldn't, but I've got things to be in the press. So he's had a couple of these throwaway stories that I thought are just very funny to get his name out in the press and make sure he's still relevant. One of them is this. He said, quote, "I'm generally a very quiet person." What?
What the hell?
What? Really?
I say blessed. Since when?
Blessed. Yeah, since when? He goes, and I do enjoy me time. How about that?
We all do.
Yeah. It's me time, all right, Lewis. And I think it's really important for us to have that. I'm a workaholic. Paul, thanks for coming in for this interview. Tell us one of the negative things about you. You know, I work too hard. I'm a workaholic.
I'm too loyal to this company. I can't. Sometimes I just stay really late.
I just always go the extra mile. I don't know. I get up early and I go home late, and I'm always thinking about the business.
I just never know when to say stop, and take some personal time. So he says, I'm a workaholic, and once you get into that rhythm, you're just moving from one thing to the next, squeezing in training and making sure that you find that balance. Oh, man, I love that challenge, and the year goes so quickly. It's been nice to not to be bothered too much and to have a bit of that time, but I miss seeing my team. I miss seeing my friends, as everyone does. There have been times, probably in the past 5 years or so, that I thought to myself, it would be good for my body and my mind to take a rest for a year.
A year? Man. I don't know if either of you watch Westworld, but I'm going to assume that some listeners are listening. And he's going to roll out like Bernard in the end of the last episode, covered in dust because he's been sitting there for years. What do you mean, take a rest for a year? Get out of here. No way. No way. What is that even?
Because he's not really interested in championships.
No, not him.
The year.
I find the whole combat thing just interesting. I wouldn't peg Lewis as an introvert in any stretch of the
I mean, not at all.
And watching his social media and outrage to the press from time to time, it seems like he's working the press agent pretty hard to keep him front of mind. So how would that sabbatical work for him, And here's the intent. The intent is like, ooh, Lewis is talking about taking a year off. Does that mean his Mercedes contract negotiations are going well? Is he going to take the 2021 off? What's going on with Lewis? Nobody knows. And this is the whole controversy, and you stir things up. And that's how he gets in the press. So good for him.
Except nobody's paying attention to this controversy because they're watching, Alex Albon's Twitch feed playing Call of Duty with, Leclerc and Norris and George Russell. So this is great, but nobody's paying attention to this.
And he's evidently he's pretty crap at learning French, so that's all.
Well, that's just it right here. Here's the better part of that story. He said, quote, I've always wanted to learn a language and still don't know any other languages. It's embarrassing, I feel. And I think it's probably similar for many people who only speak one language. No? No?
I suck at this one.
Yeah, I'm not that good at English, so whatever. He said, I aced French at school.
All right.
I'm a workaholic.
Acing it doesn't mean speaking
it. Because he just said, I don't speak another language. How do you ace something you're not... Anyway, don't get me started. We're not to question this. He just aced French at school. It's the only thing I aced. And so I'm trying to go on this online course. He's like Rosetta Stone.
I was just thinking like Duolingo.
I don't know. I don't even know where this is going, man. Bear with me. He said, the course that I have is like a 6-week course, and you're supposed to do half an hour a day. He ain't got time for that. He's training.
You know where this story is going to lead?
I don't know where it's going.
No. But whenever we do have press interviews again, every person is going to ask him, hey, Lewis, I heard you learned French. Could you tell us something in French? So he best be preparing. Could you put this out there? And now every media person can ask you about it.
And Lewis will go, oui.
Yeah.
Omelette du fromage.
Cyril Abitball's in the back going, speak some more French.
Do you like the crepes?
But he'd say it in English that we can't understand, so
we don't
as usual.
Right.
Cardinal Richelieu. So he says, when I do things, I just do them to the extremes. I sit down and I do a week in 2 hours, basically. I just do 1 week a day. I can't read anymore. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm done. Stick a fork in me.
Move on.
I can't sit here.
I just can't wait till he's like in some like Vietnam or something, some country that doesn't have like a, it's always the Asian countries that kind of get made fun of for the questions they ask, right? So that's what's going to happen.
I was on week 4 by the 4th day, Grace, and I was so stressed and I wasn't enjoying it. So I stopped for about a week or so, and now I'm trying to get back into it. You see how that parallels back into his?
No,
oh
see
my gosh.
What's actually going to happen is he's going to be in the pre-race little scrim that they do, right? They're all sitting at the podium, and he's going to say something about, oh, my French, I've been learning his French, and then Lando Norris will say something funny to George Russell, and he'll get outdone again.
Yeah.
And nobody will care.
At this point, Lewis, just leave it alone. This whole coming on and talking about how badass you are. Look, just friendly advice. I don't think I can be any more clear. So I don't know what to tell you, but
nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's
not relevant. Not when Lando is over wearing Rossi underwear and a bucket hat and playing video games and giggling. That draws people like a moth to a porch light, does it not?
Kind of like Charles Leclerc's bright orange outfit while playing Call of Duty, which I still don't understand. Does he not understand the concept of camouflage?
It's almost like when Paul Charsley starts making a fence. People just
they wear bright orange?
Yeah, French. Well, sure they do.
Yeah, they don't care. They're already run away.
That's terrible.
Bright orange? Of course they
wearing
do.
bright orange so they don't get shot as they're running away. Don't hit me.
It makes sense now. It's like waving the white flag, right?
White flag, orange shoot.
Don't shoot me.
I'm a little shocked at you guys. Do you not know that French people do that French language course? They do like a week and a day. That's how good they are. When they get
started, they can't stop. They
can't stop. They're workaholics. I mean, they're on there. They do the whole lesson. French people do the whole French language entire lesson in a week.
Maybe he needs like parents of small children. Like, you've had enough screen time now, Lewis. Put down the device. Walk around outside.
It's starting to affect your thoughts.
Yes.
Go spend some time with your dog.
Yeah.
All right.
Will help.
Send me some pictures.
No, don't. I don't want to see him.
Let's go.
Run, go. You big fluffy dog. You. All right. Now I'm going to talk about Daniel Ricciardo, silly season in the year-end contracts. This I do find interesting. Renault's very own Cyril Abiteboul. He said this about Daniel Ricciardo. He said, quote, "We like Daniel."
Okay, good.
Daniel imparted into a... The translation's tough. Daniel imparted... I'm having to go back to my French here, guys, from high school, and I aced it, but I'm struggling. Daniel imparted into a project that was very clear from day one, and that project is clearly incomplete. Okay. Both at the team level and, get this, I guess, also at Daniel's level. What?
I'm just saying.
What? Daniel's not doing his work?
What? You're taking a swing at Daniel? How is he not doing his job?
He's the new Nico Hulkenberg, man.
Exactly, Paul. That's exactly where this is heading, and you know it. That's exactly it. Cyril, he was, dude, you are putting the accent on the wrong syllable, my friend. Your car is the problem. It wasn't Hulkenberg, and it sure the hell isn't Daniel Ricciardo. So anyway, he had to get that little comment in there, and he told one Jean Herbert.
I love that guy.
No, Jean Herbert.
He's my favorite French speaker.
He is. Boy. I shook at my wife. She actually does speak fluent French, but I can't. He told Johnny Herbert, quote, "The circumstances are very strange in the fact that the season has not even started, so we're just halfway into it. We need to do what we need to do together, and already we need to think about the future. And we are thinking collectively. I like to think we can do more together. We can accomplish more together and get more results than what we have done so far. That's clearly the intention. But having said that, we have a strategy plan. The plan was around substantial investment in 2021 car. It happened that it's now 2022 because the rules are delayed a year. It doesn't mean that we're dropping the ball on what we need to do this year and next before 2022, because it's just an iterative, that's very clear.
Perfectly clear.
This is like mud over here, Tiger.
Yeah.
All right, so
Although
he's got...
put all our assets into the new car that actually is now not going to be around for a couple of years. Daniel Ricciardo's kind of screwed, but we're going to blame him for the car not being successful.
Right, and I'm sorry. I'm
what
trying...
I'm getting from?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm trying to figure this out.
We'll do it live!
And okay, so all of this said, Grace, how do you read this? I'm reading this as that Daniel's definitely talking to Ferrari and somebody else.
Or I think also, I mean, Cyril Bitbull's not going to say, I suck. Right? So when he gives
Nobody
a little,
should.
I'm just saying that he's not saying
Right.
that, right? Like, again, maybe he should be saying that. But, he kind of went, yeah, it's kind of my fault. Yeah, but also your fault too. So we're just going to focus on that part of the equation.
Aren't we all in this together?
Right. So
Let's not pick sides.
Let's not bicker and argue about who killed who. It should be a happy occasion.
yeah. So no, I think that things haven't worked out, quite like they wanted. I'm sure that's true on Daniel's side too. I'm sure that maybe, Bitbull had too high of expectations for what a driver can do in a shit car, right? Like there's only so much you can do, right? So
Well, I'm going to tell you, it hasn't panned out at all the way Paul thought it would.
more exactly how Paul thought it would go.
Paul's like, which Paul?
I don't remember having some kind of big plan, Alan.
Paul,
that's map out.
I threw that to you, Tiger.
You know-
that was
Oh, I know
right
you
at
did.
it.
You know,
Okay.
there's
I know you
that
did, and I was
driver.
not even picking it. I was
You were going to catch it.
off.
It's the one you called him an
It was
alcoholic
more
all the
amusing
time.
not to react.
Have another swig of polygamy. It'll be all right. All right. But it does bring up this whole thing. I brought this up, I don't know, a few weeks ago, this whole novelty of the knock-on effect of the COVID-19 about moving the regulation changes to 2022 instead of 2021. However, the budget cap is coming in 2021. That actually, in my mind, is a good thing because the manufacturers can't pour unlimited budgets in developing the new regulation car.
Not that it have unlimited budgets at this point.
Yeah, good point. And all of these contracts are going to be up. You're talking about like Vettel and Ricciardo and Hamilton and Bottas and I mean all of the top drivers' contracts, say versus Max Verstappen and Leclerc, are coming due at the end of this season. Go ahead,
I'd like
Chris.
to share some breaking news from
All
my
right.
Breaking news.
crack research staff. That
Wait, we need to.
wait,
Where's
yes.
where's the noise?
This just in.
Wait, I
Breaking
don't think
news.
I cannot get a glare here.
What's it say? F1 shocks Sebastian Vettel to leave Ferrari at the end of 2020. This just
Whoa.
in. That is where Daniel's going.
Okay, read it off. Yeah, I would
Read
imagine
it.
he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
This is it right here. Breaking news, folks.
See what
well,
happens,
it's not
Todd,
our
when you
breaking
start
news.
talking for so long. Grace just
Yeah.
starts. She's like looking through, swiping left and right, whatever, and then she just comes across a little snippet.
No, I mean, honestly, Flip just sent me that. I'm like, why is he sending me a text message? He knows I'm podcasting because that just happened.
Wow.
Here, I'll read it to you. Shall I?
Yes, please. I love it when you read stuff.
Okay. So this is hattipmotorsport.com. It is Monday night, and here is
Does that mean
what...
we're breaking the news from breaking the news?
Yes.
Yes, let me do that. This just in, we're breaking the news by the group that broke the news. And actually, get this, Motorsport is actually breaking the news that Bild and Automotor und Sport broke. So Motorsport isn't breaking it.
No.
I'm just reading it in Motorsport because it's in English and not German. Deutsch.
But aren't
It
those
said,
unreliable news sources?
it's hit and miss. It's hit
I
and
mean,
miss.
isn't Build always like...
I don't know. They're always, they kind of all go...
We'll have to go to Autosport for the real facts. Oh, no. Sorry, that was
No.
20 years ago.
Yeah, right. Should we go? ESPN? No. BBC. Of course, BBC. They've got it here.
They do. Okay.
All right. Let me
trust
look
the
at
BBC.
BBC.
The Queen goes through everything before it's
Sure, she does. And then she washes her hands.
She's got a lot of time on her hands
Haven't
right
you
now.
seen the show? You know those things in the box that she gets?
Yeah.
Press releases she has to go through.
That's right. Exactly right. All right. So here's this hat tip BBC coming directly from the BBC, their F1 site. It says, Sebastian Vettel is to leave Ferrari at the end of the year after contract talks between the two broke down with no agreement. The move, which is expected to be officially announced imminently, throws the future of the 32-year-old four-time world champion into doubt. Spaniard Carlos Sainz, currently a McLaren driver, is among those who have been linked to Vettel's seat. If Sainz leaves McLaren, one option for the team is Renault's Daniel Ricciardo. Now, I'm going to say right now, before I read the rest of it, Ricciardo's a better choice than Sainz.
Right.
All right. I'm just going to put that out there. Sainz.
I agree.
Yeah. No offense to Sainz, but Ricciardo's a better option there with Leclerc. All right. The Australian had serious talks with McLaren in 2018 when he was weighing up whether to leave Red Bull before finally deciding to move to Renault. Ricciardo is known to be unsettled at the French team, has talked about moving on. Vettel could also be an option for McLaren if he felt he was prepared to move to a team that was going through a restructuring process. If not, the options for the 32-year-old continue at F1 to be bleak. Let me say this before we talk about the thought about going to McLaren. I guess, that's a possibility. I don't know why, because Sainz is there and Norris is there. I would think that there might be an opportunity possibly at Red Bull.
What about Mercedes?
Or Mercedes and Bottas' spot.
Right.
Lewis and Vettel together?
Then Vettel really does follow Schumacher's path.
Yes, he would follow Schumacher's path. Exactly, Paul. You're brilliant.
Those two are going to end up punching each other.
Yeah. Now Lewis is out of the out of a contract at the end of this season.
That is some physical distance that they won't be maintaining there. That's what's going to happen.
They do it with Rock'em Sock'em robots with the really long sticks on them.
Or they get those like hamster balls, right, or something.
Now, the BBC article says that Lewis, he's in the end of his contract, has repeatedly signaled his intention to stay at Mercedes, who are not believed to be considering a move for Vettel. I don't know. If I was Mercedes, everybody, I'd keep the options open because I have to think Ricciardo's the one talking to Ferrari to move Ferrari. Now, I don't know. Lewis has been rumored that Lewis is definitely interested in that seat, but what would they lose by replacing Bottas with Vettel?
I don't know.
The four-time champion?
Vettel speaks French.
Yes.
He
could go to Renault.
Him and Lewis will get along. He could help Lewis with his progression into the French
He does speak
language.
French. Think about the French that's being spoken in that German team.
Right.
But he a four-time champion and a six-time champion, that'd be pretty daunting.
They're going to punch each other.
I don't know that they would, honestly.
How can those two get? I think this is going to be like Rossi and Lorenzo. Like, how are those two ever going to get along?
I would rather have that duo than I would Leclerc and Hamilton. I think Daniel's going to be tough enough with Leclerc because Daniel's nobody's chum.
Was he delivering something?
No, he's just making sure I saw the text message.
Oh,
That's the kind of staff I have here, apparently.
This is ruining the whole show. You're bursting the bubble, the illusion.
Usually it's just the cat that comes through my half-open door. He just, doing his job, right?
Just tell him we're recording video nowadays. You can't just walk through in your Speedo.
He had pants on. That's good.
That's awesome.
Don't give him ideas.
Don't give him ideas. We'll do it.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, there you go. Breaking news. I'm not prepared to talk about any of the rest of this stuff.
No.
That was
a big one. That's a big one.
That's
big.
Huge.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, talk us to it.
So what do you think it is? Money? Is it where he's supposedly in the team, paying number 2 to Leclerc? Right. Is it all of those things? What is he really? Where does he want to go? Does he even want to stay in Formula One? I don't know.
It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't have a really kind of a nice deal like at Mercedes, Red Bull, you know, something like that, possibly McLaren, but at Mercedes, Red Bull, if he doesn't have something he's really jazzed about, I definitely could see him just leaving the sport.
NASCAR trucks.
Yeah, I don't see Vettel.
It was just Kimi did that.
Yeah, but I don't see Vettel going to sports cars or doing any of that, quite honestly.
I don't know that he would be that interested, in the immediate.
He's just done.
And he wouldn't want to be like a spokesperson like Button or anything because he's, I don't think he has time for that stuff.
He's actually going to take the year off.
Unlike Lewis,
right?
Vettel's going to take the year off, and he speaks
never
French.
come back. Right. He actually is Lewis Hamilton.
Right. I don't know. This is big news, man.
Yeah.
Big news. If it's true, it is big news. It'll be interesting to see who picks up that seat. My big money is on Ricciardo, and now I just read Cyril's comments about it.
Yeah,
and now that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The little dig at Dan about, well, I guess it's his problem too. Yeah. Makes sense.
Already going under the bus.
Leclerc and Ricciardo.
Well, it didn't take Leclerc long to put his feet on the desk, did it now?
No, it didn't.
Sure not.
No, it didn't. And
the only thing Daniel, he came into Red Bull and he beat Sebastian the first year he went there. Maybe Daniel's like, well, I can go do that to Leclerc too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, like if you beat this team, and that team beats this team, you also beat that other team, right?
Correct.
So, right. So
I'm just sitting here thinking though. I mean, Daniel, he's had plenty of altercations with Max. Remember when he ran into the back of him and all that stuff?
I mean, altercations with Max.
Yeah, but my point is that Daniel's not a chump, and he's not going to roll over for Leclerc. It's not going to happen. And everybody can say, well, that's ridiculous. Vettel, when he was, banging wheels with Leclerc or fighting with Leclerc. Okay, yeah, I guess maybe that was not the best thing, but Ricciardo's done that a few times with Verstappen. Lewis did it with Alonso. So then you got to bring back, Alonso was talking about coming back to Formula One.
That's true.
So where might he slot in? Because I would have thought that McLaren is locked up with Sainz in Lando. So I have said from day one when Alonso left, he should have went to Renault, and that team should have rebuilt around him for the glory days of 2006, 2007.
Well, one person they're not talking about for that Ferrari seat?
Who?
Giovinazzi.
Yeah.
The guy that's being groomed. He's a Ferrari factory driver being groomed and driving for the second Ferrari team, basically, which is Alfa Romeo.
Right.
Nope, you can keep racing with Kimi.
Yeah. You guys just do that thing with the Alphas.
Yeah, you're good.
You know what Giovinazzi's problem? He just didn't go for it. It was.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
You're no longer a racing driver, Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why it's always a quandary to me as to why he's still there, really. But
because they have Mick Schumacher there.
Yeah, but I don't see him actually making the grade either, quite honestly.
Yeah,
I actually think
Leclerc's brother.
Well, Leclerc's brother, or actually Fittipaldi, Enzo.
Pietro.
Yeah.
No, Enzo.
Oh, Enzo.
Enzo's in line, but I think he showed more promise and he's still pretty young, but he's shown more promise on his own than any of the drivers in that line behind Charles Leclerc, honestly. And I think he was co-driving with Leclerc on the esports thing or whatever, but Enzo does have some good results. I think he's possibly, it may be a couple of years, so there's still got to be something going on before that.
Who knows? Maybe Kimi's going back there.
Yeah, you never know. It wouldn't be a worst idea.
No, it wouldn't with Leclerc.
Yeah.
You're number one.
But I definitely think Mick Schumacher would never leap straight into a Ferrari.
No. I think Mick. I think the logical choice, if they're going to roll the dice on Mick, would be with
Alpha,
yeah,
and replace Giovinazzi.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
I like the idea of bringing Kimi back.
Yeah, why not? You need someone that plays well with Leclerc, Kimi, whatever.
Whatever. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care. I'm telling you, I don't think. I think the guy. I think Ricciardo is a better combination with Leclerc than Hamilton is.
Yes.
But I don't think Dan's going to roll over on the deal. I think he'll be similar to the way Vettel was with him. He's not going to give him any quarter. If that's the case, Sainz, the article said something about Sainz going to Ferrari. I don't think that's a good move for Ferrari.
I don't think Sainz would go.
I mean, I like Carlos.
I think honestly, I think anyone would go to Ferrari.
Anyone would go, yeah.
Certainly, if they're in a lower team, if you're in a Mercedes team, no, you want to go. But
right. But I think that I think as opposed to Ricciardo, where I would go, I don't know, maybe Carlos Sainz would think about it for 2 seconds and then go, right? I don't know.
Right.
But I think Ricciardo would be a great choice for Ferrari.
Yes.
Because Charles Leclerc is fast, super fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And belies his experience too. But Ricciardo is super fast, and he has really good experience, but he's still got a lot of years left where they can get a lot out of him. So I agree. I think he would be the best choice. And then they've just got to weigh up, how they think that combination of drivers would hurt or hinder Charles Leclerc, which is obviously their main thrust.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens for sure. We'll have to keep you posted. Real quick, before we get out of the podcast, they did lower the cost cap.
Where'd the time go?
I know. For 2021, down to 145 million from 175. That looks like that's going to go through. Do we have time for awards? What do you think?
Did we win anything?
No, not really.
Is this the announcement of what awards we won this year for best YouTube trio?
Yeah.
I don't think we won that this week.
No, we didn't. No. Okay, let's do Post of the Week. Okay, first up is a note from Karsten. He said, hi, Grace, Paul, and Todd. Thank you for keeping up your high spirit and your work on the podcast. Been listening to you guys for quite some years now. My favorite F1 podcast. I gladly support you on Patreon. And that's very nice of you, Karsten. Thank you so much. Still smiling about the music podcast that we did. Music is great help these days with lockdown and Corona. Great inspiration to find some new old music and finding some good vibes. Yes, that's what he liked. You just say, as a guitar player, Todd, I would like to point out to you my favorite Danish guitar player, Mike Anderson. Find him where you listen to music. You won't be. I haven't heard of Mike Anderson, Carson. I'll have to listen to that. I do like Danish Pete though. I like him quite a bit. Keep up the good.
Wasn't that an HBO series?
What's that?
Danish Pete.
Danish Pete. Yeah. No, Danish Pete is over. He works over at Anderton's in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, down in Guildford, Paul.
Guildford, okay.
Yeah,
It's a nice town.
it's a toddling town. It's like Kent.
It's really happening. Kent isn't a town. Jeez.
It is now.
It is now.
Town of Kent.
What's the bus stop like downtown Kent?
Very fast.
Yeah, right. Somebody, well, thank you so much. He's best regards from Denmark. Thank you so much,
man.
President. Appreciate it. That was very kind of you. All right, let's see. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to skip Bravado because that one we can carry over till next week. But I am going to do a fashion award because it is Grace's favorite award. It's the Lewis Hamilton Fashion Award.
Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him.
It's in there, Lewis.
Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him.
It's in there, Lewis.
Get in there.
Get in there, Lewis. Box.
Out.
Oh, boy. He's a workaholic, that Lewis Hamilton. Let's see.
I'm going to bring me in, man.
Yeah, right. These tires are, yeah. I am going with Lando Norris. I found a picture. If you go to Lando Norris's Instagram page, you will find a picture of Lando Norris wearing an all black, including the logo, New York Yankees hat with black colored shades and a black shirt. And he's just sitting there looking at the camera. But it is his comment about that that's hilarious. He said,
This is Lando Norris, you said?
Yeah, Lando Norris. He said, think this is the most normal, standard, boring photo I've ever posted. In other words, I want to go racing again. And I got to tell you, his most boring, normal, basic picture is exactly the kind of thing Lewis would have posted, saying, hey, look at this cool kit I'm wearing, right? So there you go, one-upping Lewis once again, as Grace mentioned.
I know.
Got to get up pretty early in the morning to get one by Lando Norris.
Yeah, he's the new pool boy, that's for sure, for Grace.
Yeah, yeah, he's the new Grace's pool boy. It used to be JB, but
I don't know. I think he'd be like a good source of, jokes. He'd be like the court jester.
He would. And he's not changing his style, dang it. I did see him say that. Fair enough. Don't, Lando. I wouldn't want you to.
Be who you are, man.
Yeah, you do you.
He's the Eddie Haskell of Formula 1.
He is.
Good.
Golly, Wally. All right.
George.
All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. Be sure to stop by the website, theparcfermé.com. Share your opinions. Just do it to decorum and civility. Also, I have been working on a new podcast concept that I will release the first episode later this week. So if you get 2 podcasts in your feed this week, the second one will be a new product totally. So give it a listen. Let me know if you like the format, if you like it, and I will continue to make more of them. If you
I
don't
like it already.
Yeah, we're not involved in those, evidently.
I like it. It's good.
Yeah, well, I figured...
This is news today. Oh, I've just got news.
Just got news right here.
News right here. Grace and Paul replaced.
I don't know if you can see this, but I don't know if you can see that, but it says Sebastian Vettel joins Todd on a new podcast effort. I didn't want to tell you that's what Seb was going to go, where he was going to go. It's Seb and I. We're like this.
And Patty's going to come in too. Patty.
Yeah. He'll go, hello, Seb.
Good night, Patty. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Seb and I back together again.
Yeah.
That's right.
If only
one car ride wasn't enough.
He's gonna drive you to work, and he's just gonna have a
in his 488.
Yeah,
just like he did. Yeah. So no, it's just a new thing I'm trying, and I hope people enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, and if it's a bunch of crap, let me know that too, because I'd prefer not to waste a galactic amount of my time recording something you guys all hate. And the only reason to record any of these is for you guys. So let us know what you think. Be sure to go over to iTunes, give us good ratings if you like the podcast. If you do, share the podcast with a friend.
Thumbs up.
Stop by the website. Pick up a T-shirt to support the channel. And, otherwise, let everybody know we exist. Appreciate it. We're occasionally insightful. And so we'll do this all over again. Hopefully, I'll be able to get the Bravado Award, and that was a fun one. But we did have that breaking news, so we thought we'd share that with you.
Exciting.
It was exciting.
My hands are sweating.
I know. I'm thinking,
although it could be something else. I don't know.
You may need to put your shorts on back there, Paul. And that Ligier T-shirt. I don't know. I feel like now I don't know whether to go post this podcast or post the story about Vettel. That's a big news. It
is. It's big.
I don't know. In my heart of hearts, I kind of thought this is where this was going to end up. I'm pretty sure you guys did too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll see what happens if he goes anywhere else, or if he goes the way of Nico Hulkenberg and wanders off into the sunset. But we'll find out. Maybe there'll be more news next week, and maybe we'll find out who actually is going to Ferrari. Daniel Ricciardo is my best guess. So we'll see. All right. Until that time, we'll be back. This is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.